The unspoken tension. It was a quiet evening, one of those rare moments where the whole family gathered for dinner. The clink of chopsticks against ceramic, the soft hum of conversation, and the occasional laughter filled the room. Everything was ordinary, or at least it seemed so on the surface. But for me, it felt like the world was slowly unraveling, thread by thread. I stood in the kitchen, prepping the last dish for dinner, trying to stay out of the way. I could hear them talking, laughing, as if everything was just as it should be. My mother-in-law, with her usual grace, seated at the head of the table. And my sister-in-law, the golden child, who seemed to have everything she wanted handed to her on a silver platter. I wasn't jealous. Or at least, I tried not to be. But sometimes, it was hard not to feel the weight of being the other daughter-in-law, the one who had to work harder, do more, and still wasn't fully accepted. "Come on, let's go shopping tomorrow," my mother-in-law announced with a wide smile, her voice cutting through the air. "I think it's time we get something nice for you, dear." My sister-in-law's eyes lit up, her face brightening at the mere thought of a new handbag. I could see the excitement growing in her as she eagerly nodded. Her smile was radiant, almost innocent in its glee. "Of course, Mom," she said, practically bouncing in her seat. A new bag would be amazing. I stayed silent. I had never been fond of shopping, especially not for things I couldn't afford. And not for things that were so clearly meant for someone else. The next day, we arrived at the high-end department store. It was the kind of place where everything was polished, expensive, and out of reach for most people. But for my mother-in-law, it was her second home. Without a word, she made a beeline for the luxury handbags section. My sister-in-law, like a loyal follower, trailed behind her, her eyes already scanning the rows of designer bags. "Pick something," my mother-in-law said, glancing at me for the first time that day. I froze. The suddenness of the request threw me off. I wasn't here to shop for myself. I wasn't here to choose a bag. But she had said it so casually, as if it was expected, as if I should have been prepared for this moment. She didn't wait for my response. Instead, she turned to my sister-in-law and handed her a beautiful, Italian leather bag, its price tag barely visible but undoubtedly high. "This one is perfect for you," she said with a smile, not even looking at me. I stared at them. My hands trembled slightly, but I kept my composure. My heart felt heavy, the kind of weight that only comes from being invisible in your own family. And then, as if on cue, my mother-in-law turned to me again, her voice stern and unbothered. "Take this one, hold it for me. Help me carry these bags." She handed me a shopping bag filled with the new items they had picked out for my sister-in-law. The weight of the bag felt too much for me to bear, and yet I said nothing. I could only nod quietly, not daring to speak the words that were choking me from the inside. I watched as my sister-in-law skipped ahead, carrying her new handbag with pride, her steps light and full of joy. My mother-in-law followed behind, her eyes never leaving her daughter, the one she truly cared for. And there I was, trailing behind them, carrying their belongings, invisible once again. Reflection, the weight of expectations. The drive home was eerily quiet. I sat in the back seat, my hands clenched around the bag, the weight of it pressing against my chest. The silence in the car was oppressive, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. My sister-in-law chattered away, as usual, completely unaware of the quiet storm that was brewing inside of me. I could hear her voice, but it felt distant, like I was listening to someone on the other side of a glass wall. My mother-in-law sat in the front, her eyes focused ahead, as if everything was perfectly normal. And in many ways, it was. To her, this was just another day of doing what she had always done. Choosing her favorite, prioritizing her. And to me, it was just another day of being forgotten, of being invisible. I couldn't take it anymore. My frustration, my anger, my hurt, it all boiled over. It wasn't just about the bag, or the shopping trip. It wasn't even about the silent treatment I had been enduring. It was about something deeper, something I had kept buried inside me for far too long. I was tired. Tired of being expected to be quiet, to be obedient, to accept my role without question. Tired of living in the shadow of someone else. Tired of being overlooked. As we arrived home, I stepped out of the car, my legs unsteady, my heart racing. And that was when I said the words that I had been holding in for so long. The unspoken words. I stepped out of the car, the weight of the bags pressing into my hands, but the weight in my chest was much heavier. I wasn't sure what I was about to say or how I would say it, but I couldn't hold it in any longer. This wasn't just about a handbag or a shopping trip. It wasn't even about being treated like a servant. It was about feeling invisible. It was about feeling like I didn't belong. I walked into the house with shaky steps, feeling the presence of my mother-in-law and sister-in-law following behind me. The air felt thicker than it ever had, a heaviness hanging over us. As I placed the bags down on the kitchen counter, I turned around slowly. My mother-in-law had taken her seat on the couch, settling herself comfortably, as if nothing was wrong. My sister-in-law sat beside her, flipping through her phone, completely unaware of the turmoil inside me. And that's when I said it. Hey su dung bo nao qua ban. Kim trong ko hung qua toi. Hey dung tai qua ban. The words came out of my mouth without warning. The tension in the air was so thick I thought I could feel it in my bones. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to break the silence. Everyone stopped. My sister-in-law looked up, her expression confused. My mother-in-law, however, looked at me as if I had just spoken another language. "What did you say?" she asked, her tone more bewildered than angry. I couldn't explain it. The frustration had built up inside me like a volcano, and now it was spilling out, faster than I could contain it. I said, "Use your brain." I repeated, my voice trembling. "You're not just treating me like a servant. You're treating me like I'm invisible. You don't even listen to me, let alone hear me when I speak. I'm here, standing in this family, doing everything, but you act as if I don't exist." The silence that followed was deafening. For a moment, I thought I had gone too far. I could see my mother-in-law's expression shift, the confusion giving way to something colder. She was a woman who was used to having control, used to everyone bending to her will. But here I was, standing my ground for the first time. "I've had enough," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, but it felt like I had screamed it at the top of my lungs. "I'm not your servant, and I'm not your invisible daughter-in-law. I am here, and I deserve to be heard." My mother-in-law didn't say anything at first. She simply stared at me, her eyes hardening with every second that passed. And then, she stood up slowly, walking toward me with a deliberate pace. I didn't move. She stood in front of me, her eyes searching mine, as if trying to read me, trying to figure out who I had become. I could feel the intensity of her gaze, the silent judgment that had followed me since the day I entered this family. For a long time, she said nothing. Finally, she spoke, but her voice wasn't as harsh as I had expected. It was almost gentle. "I didn't know you felt this way," she said, her tone softer than I had ever heard. "I thought you were fine. I thought you were strong enough to handle it." "I am strong enough," I replied, my voice steady. But even the strongest people need someone to see them, to hear them, to acknowledge their existence. My mother-in-law didn't respond immediately. Instead, she turned away, walking back to the couch. For a moment, I thought the conversation was over. But then, she paused. "I didn't mean to make you feel invisible," she said quietly. "Maybe I've been too focused on other things. But that doesn't excuse how I treated you. It wasn't much, but it was enough." The moment of change. The days that followed were filled with an unexpected quiet. My mother-in-law's behavior towards me shifted. She was more thoughtful, more mindful of the way she treated me. It wasn't a complete transformation, she wasn't suddenly warm and affectionate, but there was a noticeable difference. She started asking me how my day had gone, inquiring about my work, my thoughts. Small gestures, but they meant the world to me. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't just a background character in someone else's life. And then, there were the moments that truly changed everything. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, she turned to me. "I've been thinking about what you said," she began, her voice quiet. "You were right. I haven't listened to you. I've been too caught up in my own world, and I haven't seen what's been right in front of me." I felt a lump form in my throat. It wasn't just the words that mattered, it was the fact that she had finally acknowledged me. She smiled, a small, genuine smile. "I'm sorry." I didn't know how to respond. After everything, after all the years of feeling like I didn't belong, I hadn't expected this. But here it was, an apology, not just in words, but in her actions. "I accept your apology," I said, my voice steady but full of emotion. "But what matters now is that we move forward. That we listen to each other, that we respect each other." That night, for the first time, I felt like I was truly part of this family. Not because of the things I had done or the sacrifices I had made, but because I had spoken up. Because I had made myself heard. Part 4, The Future Ahead. As time passed, I realized that my relationship with my mother-in-law would never be perfect. There would always be misunderstandings, moments of tension, but now, I had learned the most important lesson of all. To be seen, to be heard, and to stand up for yourself. No one should ever have to feel invisible in their own family. No one should ever have to carry the weight of expectations alone. And if you're in a situation where you feel unnoticed, it's okay to speak up, to say, "I'm here, and I matter." Because when you do, something shifts. And that shift can change everything. Epilogue, The Power of Using Your Voice. That day marked a turning point in my life. I learned to use my voice, to stand firm, and to demand the respect I deserved. It wasn't easy, and it didn't come without consequences, but it was the only way forward. I didn't just reclaim my place in this family, I reclaimed my own sense of self-worth. And that, more than anything, was the most important victory of all.